Thomas Alive Today presents
Musicland. Musicland began humbly enough in 1956 with a single outlet near downtown Minneapolis. One of the founders, Terry Evanson, had opened his first music store in his hometown of Cloquet, Minnesota, while still a teenager some 8 years earlier. Following a college education, he helped fund by leading a dance band. Evanson served in the Korean War. He then resettled in Minneapolis and launched the Musicland business with partner Grover Sayre, a former member of his band. The partnership had grown to a chain of 15 stores by 1964, at which time Evanson and Sayre decided to sell their interest. His entrepreneurial streak still alive, Evanson founded a sizable chain of greeting card stores, which he ultimately sold to Hallmark. Sayre, on the other hand, remained with Musicland until 1981. From 1964 until 1968, Musicland was the property of two St. Louis Park, Minnesota, brothers, Amos and Dan Heilecker. Veterans of record distribution since the 1930s, the Heileckers had supplied Evanson with pre-recorded music since his early days in Cloquet. Musicland expanded rapidly to 48 stores under their management before the private concern merged with Pickwick International, a music and book production, distribution, and merchandising corporation based in New York with 300 retail outlets. The Heilecker brothers remained in the Twin Cities to head Musicland's distribution and retailing divisions. Then in 1976, according to Mike Langberg, Amos Heilecker had a falling out with other members of the Pickwick board and sold his stake in the company. The year after the break, packaging giant American can purchase Pickwick for $102 million. At this juncture, Musicland appeared a clear leader in record retailing, with approximately 230 stores. In 1977, Musicland was incorporated as the Musicland Group Incorporated. Unfortunately for Primerica, wrote Langberg, the purchase of Pickwick was a classic case of bad timing. The recorded music business lurched into a long slide after 1978, while Primerica, with little knowledge of retailing in its top executive ranks, poured money into acquisitions of smaller record store chains and opening of new stores. Some of the slide was due to the flash in the pan music phenomenon of disco. The greatest factor, though, was likely the changing demographics of record buyers. Baby boomers were no longer primarily teenagers, the largest record buying group by age, but part of an older crowd fast approaching middle age. From 1979 to 1983, Ted Deichel managed Musicland and Primerica's other retailing concerns. Deichel's foremost task was to restructure Pickwick and return it to profitability. It was to Jack W. Oigster, hired in 1980 by Deichel, that the arduous job of reshaping an overexpanded Musicland fell. A former Dayton Hudson and Gap stores retailing executive, Oigster took several predictable steps over the next few years, including closing more than 100 poorly located or unprofitable outlets and centralizing distribution to just 2 warehouses. In addition, he sought savings by taking the tiniest and least obvious of measures, including switching off backroom store lights and shaving the number of paper bag sizes offered to the customer. Oigster's greatest contribution came with the introduction of a computerized inventory system that, according to Christopher Palmieri, was the standard in the record retailing business. Called Retail Inventory Management, the two-way system tracked every individual item that left the St. Louis Park warehouse by means of a barcode similar to those for supermarket products. Computerized registers at each retail outlet then scanned the barcodes at the point of sale and relayed the information back to headquarters. The final step in the process involved a computer model that forecasted the optimum levels for all music and video products on a store-by-store basis. In 1985, because of Rim and Oigster's other managerial improvements, Musicland was back in the black. The transition had been complex and costly, though, from 1981 to 1984 virtually all of the company's non-retail operations were curtailed, even while American King continued to buy up and merge smaller record chains into Musicland. Nonetheless, flush with revenues of $327.5 million and profits of $8.8 million, the subsidiary entered 1986 both comfortable in the knowledge that it was the nation's largest music retailer and hungry for further expansion. In May of that year, plans to acquire California-based Record Bar/Licorice Pizza, a 60-store joint enterprise, for $13 million were announced. When completed, the deal would bring Musicland's tally of stores to 512. Other major developments included the launch of Musicland's first for-sale video specialty store, debuting as Paramount Pictures before being renamed Suncoast Motion Picture Company. Musicland's movie division saw sales grow to nearly 7% of all corporate revenues within its first year. Then, in August, American Kin announced its plans for an initial public offering of Musicland stock. The offering was postponed until February 1987, when 19% of Musicland was sold by parent company American Can. The newly public firm dubbed the Musicland Group Incorporated. The IPO was particularly well received due to Musicland's dominant market position and a new upsurge in record buying among the 30 and 40-something crowd. Consonant with this trend, Sam Goody, with its more upscale image and emphasis on new age, jazz, and classical music, made its Twin Cities debut a year later. A discount record chain begun during the Great Depression, Sam Goody was bought by American Can back in 1978. Within 10 years, the chain had expanded from 28 to 190 stores, most located either on the West or East Coasts. Next to the original Musicland chain, Sam Goody had become a primary contributor to the company's overall revenues of more than $500 million. Retailing trends, market dominance, high hopes for video sales, and other positive indices within Musicland's divisions prompted Oyster and a group of fellow investors committed to the company's long-term growth to pursue a daring highly leveraged buyout in August 1988. When the ink was dry on the $410 million deal, Musicland's new management had decreased Primerica's ownership stake from 81% to just 20% and also reduced Primerica's role to that of passive investor. As part of the transaction, a new entity called Musicland Stores Corporation was incorporated, which acquired the Musicland Group Incorporated following the LBO. Musicland continued its program of aggressive expansion, solidly outdistancing such competitors as Trans World Music, Warehouse Entertainment, and Tower Records. In July 1990, the company entertained plans of going public, believing it could raise as much as $96 million in interest-free capital. With the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait in August and the subsequent downturn in the stock market, however, the plan was scrapped. Due to the economic recession, Musicland saw its sales soften and profits stall along with those of other music retailers. In late November 1991, according to a January 1992 Minneapolis Star-Tribune article, some industry observers speculated that Musicland was hitting rough times when it ended negotiations to buy New York City-based Record World Incorporated, a chain of 80 music stores, from Chemical Banking Corporation. Such speculation was quelled in February 1992, however, when Musicland extricated itself from LBO financing pressures by taking the company public in an enormously successful offering. A follow-up Minneapolis Star-Tribune article from that month cited Ken Salmon, an analyst with C.L. King & Associates. According to Salmon, Musicland's Wall Street appeal, despite both significant internal and external economic pressures, was that it's bigger and slightly better in everything, whether it's sales per square foot or operating margins, than any other music company out there. It was not an LBO under stress. Following the offering, Musicland topped the $1 billion mark in sales in 1992 and redefined itself as a conservatively capitalized company. In addition, holdings by the chief outside investors Primerica, Donaldson, and Equitable were cut by 30 to 60%. The largest remaining stockholder among the three, Donaldson, saw its interest drop from about 25% to 17%. In November 1992, Musicland reaffirmed its market-driving reputation by opening its first MediaPlay store in a suburban strip center in Rockford, Illinois. A 40,000-square-foot prototype competitive with such discounters as Walmart and such multimedia retailers as Borders Group, the store was part of a new program to capitalize on the emerging trend of integrated media. In the new megastore, Rope Palmieri, customers are encouraged to browse. There is a kids' play section, easy chairs in the travel book section, in the center of the store. Musicland expanded its portfolio of store formats further through the 1992 launch of On Cue, with the first unit opening in Fairmont, Minnesota. The On Cue format was similar to Media Plays in its range of products, though not in the selection nor in the store size, and was designed as a freestanding outlet for smaller markets, with populations of 25,000 to 40,000. The early returns on Media Play were astoundingly good, with the original store achieving sales of $10 million in its first full year. Musicland then launched an aggressive program of expansion, opening 89 Media Play stores and 153 On Cue stores from 1992 through 1995. Meanwhile, the company's mall stores, which were not faring as well as the non-mail units, began to be reorganized. In 1995, the Musicland stores began to be converted to Sam Goody outlets. Among the rationales for this move was the ability to promote and manage one store identity rather than two, as well as the feeling that the Musicland name was limited in that it implied that only music was sold there. The conversion was completed by 1997. In November 1995, Musicland announced plans to sell a 30% stake in Suncoast in order to pay down debt and fund expansion of Media Play and On Cue, but the plan was scuttled in early 1996 because of a lack of enthusiasm from Wall Street. The company needed cash because its growth strategy had faltered and its stock price had fallen precipitously. At the same time that the music industry was going through a sales slump, music retailers were facing brutal competition from both consumer electronics category killers Best Buy and Circuit City and big discount merchandisers, including Target, Kmart, and Walmart. All of these chains were aggressively expanding their sales of music and videos by drastically cutting prices, in some cases below cost. Media Play was supposed to represent Musicland's own category killer, but because of these competitors, who were in a better financial and operational position to maintain the low prices, Media Play was unable to gain an edge by undercutting them. With sales at the mall stores also suffering from the new competition, Musicland's overall sales were failing to increase at the pace needed to maintain previous profit levels. The company began closing underperforming stores, taking charges for this purpose and for the writing down of goodwill associated with the 1988 LBO. The company's poor performance, coupled with the charges, led to net losses of $135.8 million in 1995 and $193.7 million in 1996. For most of 1996 and 1997, Musicland teetered on the verge of bankruptcy, a fate that befell a number of other music retailers during this period. The company closed more than 100 stores, including 19 Media Play outlets, and scaled back its expansion plans. It also shut down its St. Louis Park distribution center, with operations there shifted to a huge new facility that had opened in Franklin, Indiana, in March 1995. Needing a strong 1997 Christmas selling season to cement its recovery, Musicland delivered in part by placing emphasis on the new DVD format, selling $1 million worth of DVDs during the week of December 14th to 20th alone. Sales of DVDs for all of 1997 were $50 million. Also helping was a resurgence in sales of music video, fueled primarily by the popular group Hanson. Consequently, Musicland returned to the black in 1997, posting net income of $14 million on sales of $1.77 billion. Results for the following year were even better, $38 million in profits on revenues of $1.85 billion. A cautious return to expansion came in 1999, when 39 stores were added, most of them either Media Play or On Cue outlets, with On Cue becoming the fastest growing format. That year, the company also ventured into e-commerce for the first time, launching sites for each of its four main brands, Media Play, On Cue, Sam Goody, and Suncoast. The sites were launched through an advertising campaign dubbed We Got Dot. For 1999, Musicland reported record sales of $1.89 billion and record profits of $58.4 million. Online revenues during the first quarter of 2000 had already reached $1.9 million, although the e-commerce initiative was thus far a money-losing one. In October 2000, Musicland purchased a 20% stake in an 18-store retail chain called Golf Galaxy, which was privately owned and based in Minneapolis. This venture into sporting goods seems somewhat odd, although the company had once owned the Dunham sporting goods chain before selling it following the 1992 IPO. Throughout 2000, Musicland was dogged by a lagging stock price, in spite of its seeming recovery from the dark days of the mid-1990s. One reason for the lack of investor enthusiasm was the uncertain future of the music industry, specifically in light of the rampant downloading of music over the internet that had been made popular by Napster and other online music services. Nevertheless, Musicland was itself preparing its websites to deliver downloaded music if the demand arose and if it became feasible to do so at a profit. Meanwhile, by late 2000, the company was still saddled with $260 million in long-term debt and needed another year of strong earnings to retire the bulk of it. A different avenue for expunging the debt arose, however, in the form of a company takeover. In early December 2000, Musicland agreed to be acquired by crosstown rival Best Buy Company for $425 million in cash and the assumption of the company's debt. Best Buy planned to retool some of Musicland's store formats and was particularly interested in gaining a presence within shopping malls by revamping the Sam Goody format through the addition of such consumer electronics goods as MP3 players, cellular products, and gaming items. Having conquered the nation's major markets, Best Buy also coveted the access to the smaller markets that would be gained through ownership of the On-Q chain. For Musicland, becoming part of Best Buy would give it access to more capital and could spark an acceleration in its growth. As part of a 2002 settlement with 41 states over CD price fixing, Musicland, along with retailers Tower Records and Trans World Entertainment, agreed to pay a $3 million fine. It is estimated that between 1995 and 2000 customers were overcharged by nearly $500 million and up to $5 per album. Best Buy failed to generate the results they were looking for with Musicland, losing $85 million in 2002. Best Buy admitted mall-based retail was a different business concept from their Best Buy stores, and that they had failed at properly running the Musicland group. As a result, they put the company up for sale and were likely just weeks away from liquidating the entire chain when they found a buyer in Sun Capital Partners of Boca Raton, Florida. Sun Capital acquired the company in a cash-free transaction in exchange for acquiring Musicland's debt and leases. Sun Capital attempted to get the company back to basics, but ultimately the dual pressure of internet downloading and big box competition proved too much, and in December 2005 Sun Capital announced the closure of all remaining Media Play stores. The now Sun Capital-owned Musicland Group filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in January 2006, and in February announced the closing of 226 Sam Goody and 115 Suncoast Motion Picture Company stores, and all Media Play locations. In March 2006, Trans World Entertainment announced the purchase of Musicland's remaining 400 Sam Goody and Suncoast stores from Sun Capital, along with their websites. Trans World kept 345 of those stores open and closed 55. Trans World began converting the remaining Sam Goody Mall stores to FI, their signature retail brand, but chose to keep the Suncoast Motion Picture Company name on about 170 stores. More than 100 Sam Goody stores remained in operation as of January 2007, but as a result of a disappointing fourth quarter and full year 2006 for Trans World Entertainment, Chief Executive Robert Higgins announced in their fourth quarter earnings conference call that many of those remaining Sam Goody stores would be facing closure. In late 2006, Trans World started converting Sam Goody stores to FI stores, ending signs of Musicland from the American landscape forever.
We've got your music at Musicland. Pick up the latest hit releases from Power Station, Go West, Dan Fogelberg, Rick Springfield, Kenny Rogers, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and Bryan Adams. Just $5.99 each cassette or LP. Musicland. We bring entertainment to life.
If you have any fond memories, please indicate it at the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and like.